Just a moment ago, a disaster more terrifying than an earthquake just rocked the Middle East. This wasn't a threat, it wasn't a simulation, it was real, it was brutal, and it was shocking. Iran launched a missile strike so massive, so calculated, it tore through Israel's defenses like paper in a storm. It wasn't just rockets in the air, it was a message sent through fire and thunder. A message to Israel, to the US, to NATO, and to every nation watching. We are no longer afraid. Over 1,200 projectiles filled the skies. Missiles, suicide drones, decoys, hypersonic variants, all raining down on Israeli soil in waves. The Iron Dome, once considered the pride of Israeli defense, was overwhelmed. For the first time in history, it was cooked, utterly exhausted. It simply couldn't keep up. People in Tel Aviv filmed the sky glowing with fire. Sirens screamed, streets emptied, and the night lit up with more explosions than anyone had ever seen in that region. Strategic air bases, military compounds, power stations, and even civilian infrastructure were hit. Flames engulfed buildings, power went out, communication signals dropped. Israel, the nation known for its swift retaliation and impenetrable defenses, was on its knees, scrambling. But how did Iran manage this? How could they bypass one of the most sophisticated air defense networks in the world? It wasn't just Iran, this was a coordinated strike involving Hezbollah, the Houthis, and proxy militias stretching from Iraq to Syria. It was a regional network acting like a single brain, and that brain had one objective: overwhelm the system. Iran used radar jamming drones, electronic warfare, and swarming tactics. The Iron Dome, built to handle limited rocket fire, was forced to respond to an attack far beyond its capacity. For every missile it intercepted, multiple others got through. In some areas, the system was entirely saturated. Out of missiles, out of time, out of options. The world watched in disbelief. Washington's silence spoke volumes. Pentagon insiders admitted privately they didn't expect Iran to possess such advanced capabilities. NATO allies were stunned. Russia watched carefully. China observed in silence, and the Arab world split. Some condemned the attack. Others whispered their approval. Social media exploded. Hashtags like #IronDomeDown and #IsraelUnderFire trended globally. Videos of explosions, fireballs, and panicked civilians flooded TikTok and X.
Tensions between Israel and Iran are nothing new. However, the latest escalation began when Israel, with the tacit support of the United States and its allies, launched air operations into several areas in Iran. Nuclear facilities, military headquarters, and strategic communications centers were targeted. A number of Iranian scientists and officials were reportedly also victims. The reason given was that Iran was suspected of accelerating the development of nuclear weapons. But until the attack was launched, there was no concrete evidence. Even the EO World Nuclear Organization has not issued an official statement about the serious violations committed by Iran. In other words, these accusations do not stand on a solid foundation.
We are now living in the aftermath, in the heart of present danger. The world is braced for retaliation. Every intelligence agency is watching for the counterpunch. The threat of a wider conflict is a clear and present danger. Families live in anxiety, waiting for the next siren. The specter of nuclear conflict now haunts reality. Leaders are under immense pressure to act decisively. The path to de-escalation is narrow. The road to Armageddon is wide. The future is unwritten. The next days are critical. The world watches, hoping for wisdom over wrath. The world as we knew it ended last night. The strategic balance in the Middle East is shattered. Iran has shown it can strike directly and succeed. The old paradigms are obsolete. We are in uncharted territory. The psychological scars will run deep. The global order is under threat, with institutions unable to prevent crisis. The immediate threat of a wider, possibly nuclear war is real. The world stands at a crossroads, facing a choice between desperate diplomacy and catastrophic conflict.
More than 150 ballistic missiles including Shab-3 and Sejal were launched from Iran towards Israel. Plus about 100 kamikaze and reconnaissance drones. All were directed at various strategic targets in Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, the Negev military base, and infrastructure in Ashdod and Be'er Sheva. According to preliminary reports from the field, dozens of missiles managed to penetrate the Iron Dome defense and hit several cities. In Tel Aviv, smoke billowed from the industrial area and explosions were heard repeatedly in the southern districts of the city. Sirens blared incessantly. Residents ran to bunkers in the cities of Ashkelon and Netivot. Several buildings were destroyed, fires burned residential areas, ambulances and rescue teams were milling around the streets. Meanwhile, in Jerusalem, the series of explosions and bright lights in the night sky showed how intense the air battle was. Although most of the projectiles were intercepted, the sheer volume of simultaneous attacks overwhelmed the defense system. The Israeli military itself admitted that this was one of the most complex and coordinated attacks they had ever experienced. In an effort to respond to this attack, Israel deployed all its best air defense systems from Iron Dome, David's Sling to Arrow Trig. Israel's allies, the United States, Britain, and France also took action. They helped through satellite detection, cross-regional radar, and several interception actions at U.S. military bases in the Middle East. The Israeli government claims that around 80 to 85% of the missiles were successfully repelled. This certainly shows the effectiveness of their system. However, the Iranian military said otherwise. According to Tehran's official claim, dozens of ballistic missiles managed to hit command centers, military infrastructure and vital industrial areas in Tel Aviv. They even released videos and satellite images which they said showed real damage at several strategic points. A number of independent analysts have indeed confirmed that there was major damage in several city districts. But until now it is not certain whether all of this was caused by direct missiles or fragments of projectiles destroyed in the air. What is clear is that Israel's defense system no longer looks perfect.
The mood online was chaotic, some shocked, some celebrating, others warning that this is how world wars begin. This wasn't a warning shot, it was a full-scale message, a show of power and planning. The kind of statement that changes alliances, escalates conflicts, and forces nations to pick sides. Israeli leaders vowed retaliation, but the question now is, with what confidence can they strike back when their invincibility has been shattered? US warships are already repositioning, submarines are reportedly surfacing near the Mediterranean, and intelligence chatter is rising. This may only be phase one. For years, the Iron Dome was sold to the world as a miracle, a near-perfect missile shield, but now, that illusion has cracked. Defense experts are admitting the uncomfortable truth. The Iron Dome was never built to face this kind of storm. It was an umbrella in a missile hurricane, and if Iran can do this now, what will they do next? What happens if nuclear weapons enter the picture? What if this triggers a larger Middle Eastern war that drags in superpowers? This moment has changed everything. A regional power has just stood up to a global military force and walked away standing tall. The psychological damage might be worse than the physical one, because when a giant bleeds, the world pays attention. This is not just news, this is the new reality. The Iron Dome was breached, the world order has shifted. And the question isn't who fired the last missile, it's who fires the next. The world woke up to chaos. The Middle East, long a tinderbox, had finally exploded. News channels flickered with images of destruction. Sirens wailed across cities that were once bustling hubs of life. The air crackled with tension, heavy with fear and burning metal. This was no border dispute. This was a full-scale, catastrophic attack. In Israel, the promise of security lay in ruins. Families huddled in shelters, listening to the relentless symphony of explosions. The very foundations of their world were shaking. The sanctuary had been breached. The fortress had fallen. How could this happen? Where did the system fail? A shockwave rippled out from the epicenter, not just across the region, but across the globe. World leaders scrambled. Emergency meetings called in Washington, London, and Moscow. The balance of power in the Middle East was shattered. The old rules no longer applied. A new terrifying chapter had begun. The world held its breath, knowing the aftershocks would be felt for years. The myth of invincibility was gone. For years the world believed in an impenetrable shield. That story was now a smouldering ruin. The psychological impact was as devastating as the physical. No defense is perfect, no nation truly safe. The world was forced to confront a new, terrifying reality. What happens when the shield breaks? The attack began with a swarm, not a single missile. Iran unleashed a barrage of unprecedented scale. Hundreds of missiles and drones launched in a relentless wave at Israel. This was a calculated, overwhelming show of force. The sky became a canvas of death streaked with fiery trails. Israel's Iron Dome was put to the ultimate test, and it failed. For every missile struck down, 10 more took its place. The defenders fought a losing battle against a tidal wave of fire. The barrage was designed to exhaust defenses and punch through gaps. As interceptors dwindled, Iranian missiles found their marks. Explosions rocked cities and military bases. The shield that once provided security was proven tragically fallible. The system was systematically dismantled by an enemy exploiting its weaknesses. The world watched as the myth of the impenetrable dome was shattered. Imagine the terror. Sirens blare, you run for shelter, but the system fails. The feeling of vulnerability was absolute. The attack was psychological warfare on a grand scale. It sent a clear message. You are not safe. Your technology cannot protect you. We can reach you whenever we choose. This was no haphazard assault. This was no haphazard assault. This was no haphazard assault. Iran acted with proxies, Hezbollah, Syria, Yemen, launching attacks in perfect synchronization. It was a multi-front war, a symphony of destruction. Drones, cruise missiles, and ballistic missiles attacked from every angle. Cheap drones acted as bait, forcing defenses to waste expensive interceptors. Then came the main wave's sophisticated, powerful weapons. The defense network was overwhelmed, unable to track so many threats. It was a masterclass in modern warfare, exploiting every vulnerability. The result, catastrophic failure of a multi-layered system. The entire defensive structure collapsed under immense pressure. The global reaction was stunned disbelief. World capitals entered emergency mode as the horrifying reality set in. The Middle East had crossed a line. This was a direct state-on-state attack. The UN Security Council met, but divisions deepened. The world fractured, with the attack acting as a catalyst for pre-existing tensions. Social media became a battlefield of narratives, amplifying fear and uncertainty. Fear of escalation dominated. Financial markets tumbled, oil prices soared. The world watched and waited, teetering on the edge. The possibility of further escalation loomed over the planet. Israel faced an existential threat. Its response would be massive. Would it strike Iran's military and nuclear facilities, risking a wider war? The nuclear threat felt terrifyingly real. The US faced an impossible dilemma: intervene and risk global war, or hold back. A single miscalculation could ignite World War III. The fate of the world seemed to hang in the balance. The planet was now on the brink. For years, Israel's Iron Dome was seen as technological perfection. The world believed in its myth. But the recent attack exposed vulnerabilities long hidden. The Iron Dome was never designed for a massive, coordinated saturation attack. Its weakness is economic, expensive interceptors versus cheap drones. Over-reliance on a single system proved a critical error. The Iranian attack revealed there is no perfect defense. The myth of the Iron Dome is dead.
Not certain whether all of this was caused by direct missiles or fragments of projectiles destroyed in the air. What is clear is that Israel's defense system no longer looks perfect. Layered and simultaneous attacks like this have managed to expose its gaps. And the world now realizes that even the most sophisticated technology can be paralyzed if pressed massively and suddenly. The UN Security Council immediately held an emergency session. The United States urged Israel not to retaliate excessively, but continued to emphasize that they support Israel's right to defend itself. On the other hand, Russia and China called for an immediate cessation of violence. This attack proves one important thing. Iran now has the ability to strike long range with dangerous accuracy and volume. They are able to design complex attack schemes, combining drones, missiles, and high-volume saturation that is enough to disrupt enemy defense systems.
Neighborhoods. Iranian nuclear scientists have been assassinated in daylight. Israeli citizens live under the constant threat of missile sirens and bunker alarms. Every act of aggression breeds another generation of hatred. Children in Tehran are raised to believe Israel is the devil. Children in Tel Aviv grow up fearing Iranian missiles. This is not sustainable. Here's the raw truth. War is profitable. Arms manufacturers in the United States, Russia, and Europe make billions. Oil prices spike, enriching Gulf monarchies and energy giants. Politicians rally national support by invoking existential threats. Media outlets rake in views, clicks, and ad revenue from bloodshed. Meanwhile, the people, Iranian, Israeli, Palestinian, Syrian, pay the price with blood, trauma, and endless fear. It's difficult, but not impossible. Here's what a path to peace might look like. First, re-establish the JCPOA, or a stronger nuclear deal with real-time inspections, sanctions relief, and guarantees of regional non-aggression. Second, a regional security framework, like a Middle East version of NATO, where all states, including Israel and Iran, agree on non-intervention. Third, recognition and de-escalation. Iran must drop its calls for Israel's destruction, and Israel must end its assassination campaigns and commit to respecting regional sovereignty. Fourth, proxy demilitarization, disarming Hezbollah and Hamas diplomatically, not through war, while addressing legitimate grievances in Palestine and Lebanon. Fifth, cultural diplomacy, encouraging academic, scientific and medical cooperation between Iranian and Israeli civilians, especially youth. Sixth, a UN-led peacekeeping body stationed in key flashpoints like Syria, Lebanon and the Gaza border. This requires unimaginable political courage and a willingness to stop worshipping bombs over humanity. The Israel-Iran conflict is no longer a shadow war, it's real, explosive, and it's threatening to drag us into an abyss. If the world stands by, we may witness a full-scale regional war that destabilizes the planet. Not because of religion, not even because of politics, but because pride, profit and propaganda outweighed reason. We have two choices: escalate or evolve. The future and the survival of millions depends on what we choose next. Tell me what you think about this situation that's sparing out of control.